You either clicked on this video because you're a Swerf, in which case, welcome, or because you're a mainstream feminist who is likely unaware of the reasoning behind being a Swerf, in which case, allow me to explain. You will either find this video amusing or unbearably problematic. Regardless, welcome. Swerf is shorthand for sex worker exclusionary radical feminist, but the term is generally misleading. Radical feminists who are categorized this way by leftists are not against sex workers, but rather sex work. We see sex work as dangerous, demeaning, and objectifying. Self-objectification is not empowering nor feminist. Swerfs want sex workers to have the economic and social means to leave sex work, because this would benefit them the most and keep them safe from the physical and mental trauma that is almost without exception associated with such quote-unquote work. Sex work ultimately benefits men's libidos at the expense of women. If you haven't already watched The Substance, it's a recent and widely acclaimed film. It took social media by storm and is a horror film that deals with female aging in the movie industry. It embodies many Swerf principles. The movie follows Elizabeth Sparkle, a Hollywood star who is immensely successful in her youth and as time progresses, loses her influence because of her aging, eventually getting fired from her job. As a result, she takes an illegal drug from a secretive company that promises to bring back her youth. The drug works, and a younger clone of herself gruesomely breaks out of Elizabeth's body. Although Elizabeth and her younger clone are two separate beings, her younger clone contains all of her memories. After the creation of the clone, however, the two bodies do not share memories of events that happened then on. Only one person can be conscious at a time, and the drug requires the two to switch every 7 days. One person will sleep for 7 days while being given nutrients through an IV, while the other will be awake for those 7 days, and then they switch. This is required by the medicine. Additionally, the younger clone regularly needs stabilizer fluid produced by Elizabeth, otherwise she will die. The younger clone takes on the name of Sue and auditions for Elizabeth's old position. She becomes a celebrated workout routine dancer, and it is evident that the reason for this is because of her youth and because she is objectifying herself for profit, something that the film regards with abhorrence. This loathing is later expressed in a uniquely terrifying way, in a way that only a film in the horror genre could pull off. If this film was pro-sex work or sex-positive, it would praise Sue for using her body to gain profit. After all, Sue is doing what every OnlyFans model does, and what a lot of Twitch streamers and female musicians do as well. Her Hollywood work is nearly identical to it. Left-wing activists constantly are defending OnlyFans models, Twitch streamers, and female musicians who sexualize themselves. And these women are 99% of the time in their 20s and 30s. By the activists' logic, there would be absolutely nothing degrading about what Sue is doing. These so-called activists would have no problem with a culture that emphasizes a woman's sexuality over her competence. In the film, Sue's desire to attain fame and wealth using her looks leads to her demise. Because she so craves to be loved by the public and does not want to miss out on the time needed to become more successful, she ignores the instructions provided by the company who made the mysterious drug, and does not switch every 7 days with Elizabeth, which results in disgusting consequences for Elizabeth. The two eventually wake up at the same time and fight, and Sue murders Elizabeth. However, Sue now does not have the stabilizer fluid anymore, and therefore her body starts to fall apart. Frantically, she tries to make a clone of herself by taking the initial drug that Elizabeth took to clone herself. Sue's clone emerges from her, revealing itself to be an amorphous amalgamation of human body parts. Modern left-wing politics praises entertainers for sexualizing themselves. Progressive Hollywood nearly necessitates it as part of their sex-positive, flawed version of feminism. Examples of this can be found in pretty much every top 100 pop song music video, and various films that promote sex work, like the movie Hustlers, which glorifies stripping. If the film was truly pro-sex work, it would take a stance more analogous to Hustlers, where the young women in the show are applauded for appealing to the male gaze. Above all, though, The Substance is a statement about the beauty industry. The actress who plays Elizabeth in the film, hilariously, during the Golden Globes, publicly and purposefully ignored Kylie Jenner, a Kardashian, while personally greeting everyone else at her table. Whether or not this was a clever marketing ploy is not necessarily relevant, given just how funny and deserved this was on the part of Kylie Jenner, a very famous advocate for plastic surgery. She has made millions selling her lip gloss, which is promoted as yielding a similar look to lip injections. In the film, the beauty product, aka the substance, is portrayed as a form of self-harm, a product for women's insecurities. Left-wing feminism famously refuses to condemn plastic surgery, or even makeup for that matter, stating that any choice that a woman makes about her body is feminist. Radical feminists, however, know this to be false. Just because a woman chooses to do something does not make it empowering. For people make heinous decisions every day that are detrimental to themselves. Left-wing feminism is often so non-judgmental to the point of being unable to condemn clear misogyny out of fear of excluding. I think there exists a line that women should hesitate to cross. It is beneficial to take care of your skin and hair. Proper exercise is advantageous, and striving for healthy beauty can only be life-enhancing. Wearing a moderate amount of makeup to accentuate your best features is fine. Though unlike Sephora's marketing team, I will not delude you into thinking that this act in particular should be categorized as feminist. The line, though, is when beauty becomes self-harm. When wanting to please results in drastic physical harm, for example, in plastic surgery or tanning beds that cause skin cancer. Or, injecting yourself with a suspicious substance that eventually turns you into a monster beyond human comprehension. I was listening to Louise Perry's podcast the other day, and she made an interesting observation that typically a woman's lifespan can be divided into the categories of maiden, mother, and matriarch. This means that a woman is a maiden starting in her early 20s, progresses to become a mother, and graduates into matriarch. Louise Perry says that these three categories are of equal importance, each having necessary contributions to society. However, society tends to reward only the maiden category. Social media primarily validates maidens rather than mothers or matriarchs. Therefore, there has been a shift where women are less likely to be happy with being in the other categories because society values those categories so little. The film in many ways can be a metaphor for motherhood. Sue is born out of Elizabeth's body, a younger version of Elizabeth. Sue is maiden, Elizabeth mother and matriarch. Evidence of the film's anti-sex partiality can be found in the scene where Sue takes a man back to her apartment, presumably for a hookup. Instead of showing the hookup as the typical sex-positive girl boss moment, the film portrays it with a sense of revulsion. It is hard to explain how this is done without being gross, but let's just say it's done through the use of sound effects. Furthermore, although the man is nice to Sue, he is later shown to treat Elizabeth extremely rudely, underscoring a downside to hookup culture. That is, women validate men with sex even if the men are terrible people, because there is no vetting process. The tendency of Hollywood to portray sex-positive men as soft-hearted guys who want the best for women in the most non-judgmental ways is like hiding a wolf in sheep's clothing. This film does not do this. The main male character is the producer of Elizabeth/Sue's show. He is appropriately named Harvey, presumably after Harvey Weinstein, a real-life film producer who is known for sexually assaulting some of Hollywood's most well-known actresses. Ironically, or perhaps predictably, Harvey Weinstein was a left-wing man. In this film, Harvey is regularly shown having little regard for the women who work under him, only caring about profits. This is comparable not only to real-life Hollywood, but also to sex work industries, where the women, no matter how prolific, do not make the majority of the profits. Rather, invariably, the male executives do. I do not have many criticisms of the film, but one that I must point out is that Elizabeth's love interest, an old high school classmate, is incredibly undeserving of her. He's a weak, bumbling fool with no positive traits other than being sort of outwardly nice. Though she is severely flawed in character, Elizabeth is still beautiful and accomplished. She is clumsily flirted with by this deadbeat, but feels unworthy of him. So unworthy that she gets fully dressed up for the date, only to stand him up because she does not feel beautiful enough. This by itself would actually have been a wonderful detail to accentuate the extent of her insecurity, had the film not presented this man with a sense of endearment, hinting that Elizabeth self-sabotaged out of a heartwarming relationship. Indeed, this relationship would not have been heartwarming. Women deserve to have standards, and being a sort of nice guy is not sufficient grounds for attraction from a woman like Elizabeth. A common online criticism of the substance is that it is a hagsploitation film. Hagsploitation is a trope/subgenre of horror films in which older women are violent and crazy. These films end up perpetuating the fear of aging in female viewers. Indeed, the substance does depict aging as repulsive rather than a graceful natural process. Being young is shown as a flawless experience. Being old is shown as dreadful. even though in reality, the naivety that comes with youth makes life hard, and the wisdom that comes with age often makes a woman's older years more enjoyable. Although it is a good point that such a trope does undermine the core message of the movie, I do not think that the film would have been as effective if Elizabeth had been a confident or mentally strong person. It would not have felt as tragic, hopeless, or dark, and therefore the mood would not have been the same. If she had the mental fortitude or the competence necessary to solidify her place in Hollywood, using cleverness rather than looks, then she would not have taken the drug in the first place. For example, many older successful women in the TV business, such as Heidi Klum and Tyra Banks, started out as models, but using their intelligence were able to stay employed way past their 40s. Life is not fair to women, but outmaneuvering the Hollywood system and beating men at their own game is wholly possible. Strangely enough, this film has proven that there need not be a strong female character in a film for it to be feminist. After all, not every woman in the real world is strong, and it is beneficial to learn from the mistakes of others. That being said, if the filmmakers wanted to make Elizabeth a mentally strong character, they could have made it so that she was forced to take the drug. For example, through lack of finances, or extenuating circumstances. In the film, she takes the drug out of her own free will, even though, looking at her living situation, she is extremely well off financially and would have no reason to take it other than wanting to look young. Elizabeth's mental vulnerabilities allow the film to explore themes regarding self-abandonment. When Sue decides to stop switching with Elizabeth, this exhibits a lack of self-care. A phrase that is repeated time and again in the film is, quote, "Remember that you are one," referring to Sue and Elizabeth being one. When Elizabeth's body starts to rot and decay as a result of Sue's neglect, Sue, in a way, is neglecting herself. Sue even goes so far as to express disgust at Elizabeth's body, leaving Elizabeth lying on the cold bathroom floor. Sue rejects herself in favor of her starlet status. In a way, she prioritizes her male viewers over her health. A strong female lead would never do this, and thus this underlying message could never have been illustrated had Elizabeth and therefore Sue been mentally steadfast. Some additional notes about the film. I thoroughly enjoyed its extreme and exaggerated nature. I'm not usually the type of person who enjoys gory horror. I find it generally unsophisticated and at the expense of thoughtful storytelling. But The Substance is a wonderful and surprising exception. At times, the exaggerated body horror is even used as humor. For example, when final form Sue is introduced, she is still so hell-bent on keeping her fame that she attempts to cover up her appearance with a photo and proceeds to put on earrings. This movie is anything but understated, which makes it attention-grabbing in every scene. It's disgusting, but you can't look away. I do not think that the filmmakers of The Substance intended for it to be a rad femme masterpiece, but it is. It is highly likely that the filmmakers of The Substance are not self-proclaimed radical feminists, but like many left-wing liberal feminists, they lean more towards radical feminism than they realize. There are many inconsistencies in the logic of left-wing liberal feminism, and these cracks start to show up when issues like female self-objectification are discussed. They start out as small punctures and always end up as large rifts. Here's to hoping that you see them too. I am new to making video essays on YouTube, but I plan to make more soon and consistently. If you enjoyed this video, please consider following me on Twitch as well. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.